The persona featured this time is something that was considerably lower leveled leading up to this point, a level 14 ghoul, originally a level 9 when this save was first created. It was something that I had in the background being leveled up because I knew I'd need it, but I wanted it to at least be much fairer, scaled much fairer to what I'm doing, and this is the best I could do in the time I had. Mostly because the skill I was using to level it up only gave it half the amount of XP, and for nearly the whole of the first two dungeons, I was running on a lowered XP gain, meaning that it was a problem to level it up. After making our way decently through the dungeon, I had reached level 33 after finding a few of the golden hand enemies that will give increased amounts of XP compared to everything else. This was fairly lucky because they don't spawn too often and only one can be on a floor at any given time. So after getting to the 7th floor, which was the mini-boss or mid-boss, whatever you want to refer to it as, floor for this dungeon, I had already made it quite a considerable way through because of the fact that I had gotten lucky and was able to just, for the most part, avoid enemies past the point of reaching that higher level. The pain only begun upon reaching the 7th floor though. I'd gone back and saved just to be sure that if anything went wrong, I would keep the level advantage I did have. So, during the time leading up to the boss, between reaching the floor and saving and then actually getting to it, I died over 3 times. It was 3 or it was 4. One of the numbers, it happened during that time. I'm glad I was able to go back and save at that point, because I would have lost nearly 45 minutes of progress at that point. This would have been incredibly bad because I would have had to close the stream at some random point within that, not knowing anything about how far I would make it or not, and then have to record the rest of it as I did with the first one. This was because of other things that I had going on at the time. But hey, that's fine. It's mostly because of the 10 level difference between the persona itself and the shadows we were fighting. Because of its lower stats as a result, it did fall quite easily. That is not something that could be prevented, but would have to be an element of the challenge that I was providing myself, where I'd have to constantly be guarding or healing in order to make it through most fights on that floor leading up to the boss, which itself was quite simple, specializing in poisoning the party with physical skills that have a chance to do so, and increasing the odds with other moves that will increase ailment affliction. It was, however, weak to fire, something that we were able to use to our advantage and win the battle. There was, however, some close calls while fighting it, where I would nearly die, a party member would nearly die, or some other variation of it, where we'd all be low, half of us would be low, people would get poisoned, and it was a constant battle between healing and fighting it. Upon defeating the boss, reaching the highest floor wasn't difficult at all. During the leveling process between then, however, there was an unfortunate death because of my own mistakes. Because I had saved upon reaching the final floor, however, recovering the lost XP that I had was fairly simple, since I could easily go back to the point I was, because I had died shortly after saving instead of a very long time after, like what led to my previous massive drops in leveling and XP gain. This dungeon has 2 bosses, one which we need to get to half, while the other is a lot more annoying. The original boss is the one I need to get, to only half. Specializes in hitting weaknesses through its variety of elemental magic skills, making it a difficult opponent. Upon reaching half health, it will use a move that renders it unhittable, causing you to either need to just sit through the turns guarding or doing whatever sort of moves, skills, whatever, because you will be healed back to full upon reaching this second boss. Since this is a required thing, it was something that you would have to sit through for a few turns while it tries to hit the weaknesses of, I believe, the entire party. Once it has done that, however, you are free to continue on to the second boss. This other boss has a variety of different skills: defense lowering, physical attacking, ice magic, and an ability which can instantly kill anyone suffering the dizzy status. However, if they are not suffering with it and are hit with the move, which will only hit if you are not guarding, it will deal heavy or mighty damage and inflict the status. However, it seems very unlikely that we would survive anyways, because it is heavy damage, meaning it would do a lot more than any other move we've been hit with up until that point, making it something that would almost instantly end that attempt at a death, which I worked my way around quite well without knowing what the move did, because up until that point, since I'd never been hit by it, all I had assumed was it would instantly kill you. But that seems to be only the case if you or the party member that is hit are dizzy at the time, which is a relief, seeing as the boss usually hits you with a move that will guarantee that, but by the time it gets to actually hitting you with the attack, you will have already recovered. However, the boss itself continued to be relatively simple, and something that I was surprised wasn't more challenging, having looked at how difficult it was in other runs of the game that other people have done. But that could just be because of the strategy I had going into it, of having two party members that mainly would attack it with physical skills that it did not resist in any way, having the main character lower the defense, and then having healing for when it is needed for the whole party. This was a surprisingly easy persona to use, which was surprising considering the fact that it was a significantly lower level than either of the two we had used before, seeing as it never at any point had a level advantage over what we were fighting. But this is likely because of not finding many enemies which could counter it past the first few floors, unlike the previous two, which had several throughout that would do so. However, this isn't to say it was an easy battle from start to finish. Anything with stronger skills still provided quite an issue to me because of the lower endurance stat of this persona, which would lead to it easily being taken out by higher tier moves.